A cave with a dungeon type has been created. The Tower Trials dungeon has been made, along with hidden treasures in the dungeon. A world where adventurers hunt dungeons to gain wealth and honor. But not everyone becomes an adventurer, and only chosen people can become adventurers. Then one morning, this young man was walking and met someone. Apparently he's an adventurer, and there's a dungeon ahead, and ordinary people aren't allowed to enter. The young man was seen wearing an adventure necklace. And a large bag was carried by the young adventurer. This young man is named Nagi. He is a white porcelain rank adventurer. His job is adventure bag. Nagi is a porter. He just came to this area for the first time. Nagi comes from the association and his job here is to help adventurers carry items to the dungeon. A porter with a 50 gold daily wage. Finally he realized this. He thought it was stupid, because this dungeon would require 4 porters to be sent. But Nagi was alone, so he was called stupid. He doesn't trust Nagi because there will be a lot of loot to carry here. Of course, their bags also include a lot of heavy luggage. He was also told to bring a lot of things. A porter who gets 5 times normal rate of 10 gold or less per day. Now he will show the true strength of a porter. Nagi puts his bag on the ground. He easily put all the heavy stuff into his bag. They were just silent when they saw Nagi actions. This young knight also looked confused. They say Nagi has a magic bag. They all looked confused about their belongings that were put in the bag. This is a special bag, and no one can use it but him. Finally the young knight gave permission. That he would be their porter in the dungeon they were about to enter. Gold rank, named Jepnam, a swordsman, commander of the Dawn Wolf Brigade. He confirmed that he would bear the consequences himself. Nagi knew that the person was the party leader. He looks very disciplined and tough. For him this will be fun. He is a professional porter, and the dungeon raid will end here. They have also prepared all the equipment for battle. They finally entered the dungeon together. They explore the dungeon, with Nagi carrying the light. Suddenly they stepped on a strange floor, which turned out to be a trap. But from a distance it was seen that goblins were starting to attack them. They quickly got ready, and Nagi quickly hid. Both sides attacked each other. The battle took place simultaneously. They had quite a hard time dealing with the goblin horde. Finally they managed to defeat the goblin, but here it seems they were too nervous. They argued with each other. Nagi immediately thought of something, because this was his job as a porter. It looks like he's going to take something out of his bag. They need something to keep them relaxed so they don't get nervous. They were confused about the meaning. Nagi also took out a lot of food from his bag. This movement is called porter-style dungeon restaurant. Finally they started to eat all the food. They think that it is the ability of the bag. The statement is true, that this is the ability of this bag. He immediately took something out of his bag again. A bathtub for bathing. Now he felt like he was in a beautiful resort. But this is still in the dungeon. Finally they both felt like taking a bath in the dungeon. It's a decent experience and comfort, but it's still not worth paying 50 gold. For Nagi in this dungeon, it is very important to stay in good condition and get enough sleep. It is his duty to help adventurers and provide comfort during dungeons. Now they feel like they are in top form and full of energy. And now they are preparing to conquer the dungeon. The extermination was finally carried out, and they all fought well, including Nagi who was hiding. He could only hide behind a rock, because Nagi, a porter, actually had no combat ability. The problem with dungeons is usually the boss. The boss is always a bundle of variables. But it seems like they are prepared for that. They all finally faced the boss together. The boss starts attacking with his left hand. But this old man was able to avoid the frontal attack. After that he started aiming his crossbow to attack. But it didn't work because the boss has a counter ability. The monster started attacking again. The tail kick attack was successfully anticipated by the party members. At the same time, Jepnam immediately started to attack. He aimed for the monster's tail. With the positive talent bash skill he managed to cut the monster's tail. But at the same time the monster started to spit something out of its mouth. The direct attack from the monster was successfully anticipated by Jepnam with sword skills. But this will not be easy. The monster managed to perform an area-based attack. Nagi know that the monster was called Zarkum Lizard with AB rating. After seeing the battle, the party was already 80% to achieve success. To make things easier for them, he immediately took something out of his bag. He already had it in his hand. He took out a mushroom. He planned to throw this thing at the monster, so that the party's attack could be maximized. Nagi began to prepare to throw the mushroom. He was aiming. But the lizard started making strange movements. Suddenly the lizard will burst towards Jepnam from close. Finally a gap opened up because of that, and he started throwing. A strong and long throw was launched towards the lizard boss. Until it hit the lizard's head squarely. The lizard began to experience strange reactions due to the throwing of the mushroom. Jepnam learned of the attack from the porter. Nagi tells him that now is the right time to attack. He immediately followed Nagi's plan. He started running from the lizard's tail. After running he jumped behind the lizard while holding the sword. The high jump allows him to freely attack from behind. Finally, with one fatal stab of his sword, Jepnam managed to defeat the lizard. They also managed to complete the challenge of this dungeon and immediately took the loot. Seeing the adventurers successfully complete the dungeon made Nagi happy. The drop were only 5, and the rest were just low-value item. The dungeon monster were mostly just Komno Goblin. If they weigh the cost and effort that went into this raid against the reward, so a perfect loss occurred. Then they have to split the rewards 4 ways. Finally they fought over the reward and argued with each other. Splitting the rewards is becoming a sensitive issue. But for him, the adventure issue had nothing to do with him, and he only received salary according to the initial agreement. But there he tried to lighten the mood by giving them drinks. But Jepnam started to think differently, that the mushroom he threw was a rare ingredient. But for Nagi, it's just part of his ability. They also think that it is very extraordinary. That extraordinary thing is the bag that Nagi has. Maybe the contents of the bag are more valuable than the dungeon itself. They know that maybe there is money or something in the bag. Even though Nagi is just a porter with a paid of 50 gold. They started acting strangely, and started to target the bag. This made him feel a little strange. Suddenly the attack was directed towards the bottle of drink. An arrow attack was launched towards Nagi. This confused him, and then the next attack was launched. An attack that was aimed at him, and it could be fatal. He seemed to know what the party wanted. Nagi began to be cornered alone in the dungeon. This old man just wanted to get this end with without any pain. Being an adventurer is very risky, therefore the income must also be equal to the risk. They're just in a tough situation, if they can't pay the attribute. As an adventure porter, this is the risk that Nagi must face, that's it, betrayal. And the job of a dungeon porter is one where defeat during the dungeon run is quite common. Even Nagi lose with them, that people just say he lose with Goblin and no one would think anything strange about it. No matter Nagi helped the adventure, the way they treated Nagi is as a tool. Their view of him was initially very admirable. But in an instant it turned into a despicable view, because of the loot problem. But he was not surprised by this, because this was a familiar occurrence for an adventure porter. In this world, since birth, each person has received an ability or destiny that brings them to the adventure rank. One of them is Nagi's destiny. He has the ability bag, which brought him to the lowest ranked job. From past to present, problems and destiny have not changed. When he was born as the lowest job rank, ability bag. Many people look down on their job abilities because are useless for adventure. He couldn't register as an adventurer with such abilities. But if Nagi still wants to participate in the dungeon, he must register as a dungeon porter. He was destined not to be an adventurer. Here he knew that they would attack, and here he would not just sit back and do nothing. They already seemed prepared. This warrior would make the first attack. With his spear he began to attack Nagi head-on. Nagi started to make a defensive move. He slightly threw his bag. Now he will fight, and it is not his will to do this. He started taking something out of his bag. The warrior's spear slash was blocked by the sword that Nagi took from his bag. He was surprised by that. The first step is taken. Nagi jumped towards the warrior preparing to attack. With the hilt of the sword he planned to attack him with it. Finally, with the hilt of the sword, Nagi managed to hit the warrior's face, sending him flying. They were also surprised by Nagi's movements. He then started to take the axe out of his bag again. Then threw the axe right at the crossbowman. Nagi aims for the old man's weapon, to destroy it. In the end, the crossbow could no longer be used, due to the attack from Nagi. Jepnam was shocked and confused about what Nagi had done. The warrior has been defeated, and now it's a 1 versus 3 fight. Jepnam was angry with his party members for not defeating the porter quickly. Finally, they both started attacking Nagi at the same time. But he had already prepared something to take out on them. He threw a hot water hose at them with great force. As a result, they feel the heat from the hot water. At the same time, with his ability, he again takes out his weapon to attack. He would finish this fight in an instant. The large shield that the member had was successfully split by him. It surprised him. Then with full strength Nagi started hitting the man using a stick hard. The blow sent him flying and hitting another one. A fighting technique with useless abilities has been shown by Nagi. The man was defeated in one attack. Jepnam seemed surprised at how quickly he was defeated. He has already defeated all 3 adventurers simultaneously. Jepnam doesn't believe that Nagi is a white rank. It looks like there are a lot of weapons in his bag. Nagi with useless abilities can maximize his fighting techniques to the highest and unpredictable level. He admitted that he was not an adventurer, but only a dungeon. It looks like they have come out of the dungeon cave. Nagi was surprised by someone's arrival. He also gave a sign of his presence. Turns out she is Petra, a white-level grade dungeon inspector. But she saw that the party was full of bruises. Nagi will also provide evidence from the contents of his bag. But Petra only heard terrible words. He also noted down every word and incident she heard in the contents of the bag. Petra finally found out that Nagi was betrayed by the party. But he was curious how Nagi could get out of this situation. With Jepnam affected by poisoned ashwood mushrooms. A mushroom that if consumed can cause dizziness and bruising on the face. They had eaten the mushrooms, and that was why they attacked him. After eating the mushrooms, symptoms appeared. Nagi glanced at Jepnam and confirmed that the story was true. With such strong intimidation, he couldn't do much. The story was all a lie, but it was true that the party ate the mushrooms, but under pressure. Back to the previous battle in the dungeon cave. Nagi is seen attacking with a sword. But his slash was successfully blocked by Jepnam. A fierce battle ensued between Nagi and Jepnam, both of whom showed off their skills. He continued to attack in succession, without giving Jepnam time to move. Nagi keeps attacking and Jepnam can only defend. He was also surprised by the skill of a porter who was only white level. He seems to be enjoying the game. He started jumping into the air to attack. Jepnam did not stay silent and he launched a counterattack. Nagi also knew that he would counterattack. Nagi managed to avoid his slashing attack. Jepnam's continuous attacks were always avoided by Nagi. Until the fatal slash attack that was so fast also avoided. He was also surprised by the porter's abilities. Then the final large-scale slash was also successfully avoided by Nagi. Jepnam looked useless, because all his attacks were avoided. Isn't that porter very strong? Or Jepnam is the one who is weak and incapable? He was very upset about this. For him this was unacceptable and strange. Nagi then told the real situation, that Jepnam's weakness occurred because he had previously eaten Nagi's food. They had eaten smoked mushrooms, so their bodies became heavy and too weak. All of Jepnam's attacks are not optimal due to the effects of the smoke mushroom he ate. He was immediately angry, because Nagi had planned this from the start. A porter would never trust a shady party. Whether it is a betrayed or not, preparations will continue. The preparation also included an antidote that he had previously offered to their party. But the party useless have messed up. The antidote he had previously offered had been destroyed due to a betrayal. He was also fooled by Nagi's plan. And now only one bottle of antidote is left. And that's the real story that happened in the dungeon cave. He also agreed to the lie that Nagi made up for Petra. They all confirmed the lie story, because of Nagi's threat. Petra finally made the decision to consider this party criminal. His business was over, and Nagi said goodbye to leave. But Petra offered Nagi a wagon if he wanted to go to town. Finally they went to town in a wagon. There Petra knew that Nagi already had a lot of experience when he arrived in the city. She also apologized for registering him only as a porter. But for him it didn't matter, because as a porter it wasn't too bad. In this incident, it was not Nagi's fault, but the party's. The party Nagi subdued are all part of Dawn Guild. The guild was famous in this area for its arrogance and lawlessness. But if any of their members have problems they will retaliate. Then Petra asked Nagi to be careful with that. It looks like Nagi is listening to that. One of the pets looked hungry and asked him. He did not waste this opportunity and note the incident. This pet is Gluttony, it organizes the item inside Nagi bag. Previously he had difficulty taking out the weapon from his bag. In exchange for Gluttony's work, Nagi gives him a magic stone. But the cost of magic stone for the pet has been replaced from the looting results from the party. Nagi took it from the party. He also gave the magic stone to Gluttony. Nagi and his pet looked so close, and this was the first time Petra had seen a creature like that. She complimented the bag that Nagi had, making her look fascinating. But suddenly the horse they saw looked scared. They don't know why the horse is so messed up. But Nagi seemed to realize something odd. He felt a terrifying sensation. An aura of darkness enveloped them. There's no mistaking this feeling for a dungeon break. Nagi also told Petra that there was a dungeon break. She was also surprised by the statement of the dungeon break. But Petra was curious about how Nagi could feel that. He just answered, it was instinct. Instincts that cannot be accepted by logic. They had to move quickly before there were casualties. Petra, who is an inspector, cannot feel this, and not accepting the answer regarding instinct is unreasonable. But Gluttony could feel that it was really a dungeon break, because he could smell a lot of magic stones. There is also a magic stone as like as a mountain. Petra also began to believe Nagi's words a little. Finally they rushed to check the situation. They finally arrived at the dungeon break location. It's when the monster inside the dungeon flood put and go rampage, and that's why they must subjugate dungeons in the world. Petra finally believed Nagi's words. She knew this dungeon could break any time soon. But she was still curious, how could Nagi feel this from afar? He will never forget that feeling. A scary feeling more than anything, which traumatized him. A situation where many monsters are rampaging and causing chaos, resulting in total destruction. She was surprised because Nagi already had experience with dungeon breaks before. Something strange because this dungeon is close to the village. There no way adventurers wouldn't have subjugated it by now. This dungeon was already assigned, and Nagi wants to know who accepted the quest and rank were they. This dungeon classified a D rank, and the adventurer who accepted it were 1 mithril ranked and 2 copper ranked adventurers. A mithril adventurer for a just a D rank dungeon, he thought little of this. He suspected something. For now Nagi will go to the village to do something. Then Petra told the guard to take the party to prison. As a dungeon inspector, Petra will accompany Nagi. They both went to the village. It looks like people are gathering there. There is something happening in this place. The residents already knew about the dungeon break, and were angry about those who didn't take care of this quickly. They were adventurers named Nero and Van Deshtar. Then they asked the residents to ask the leader. Van is angry with this situation because currently the leader is AFK. Their anger grew even higher, because of that statement. It turns out that Nagi already knew about this, and his suspicions were correct. This happened when a party leader of a higher rank than the dungeon level sign up, then if a better dungeon is discovered in the meantime, and the leader abandons the lower ranked dungeon altogether. The association imposes fines in case like this. Adventurers don't mind if this happens. But the villagers would lose everything if this happened. Dungeon break will happen tonight. If they ask for request from the Adventure Association, then when the adventurers arrive, this village will be destroyed. Then the adventurer who is here is irresponsible about this matter. Van also felt victim by the leader party, because he suddenly disappeared. And if they want to blame, then they should talk to the association. For Nagi, adventure is not a savior or a hero. They only care about themselves. But only adventurers can stop the dungeon break. And not a porter like Nagi. Petra wants residents to be evacuated immediately. But not with him. Nagi will do something to solve this. But that is impossible. It will be winter soon. If the residents lose their homes, they will not be able to survive the long winter. Now he will act according to his abilities. What the people need now is not a porter. Nagi will do something unusual. Nagi's existence was already known to them, because he talked about the dungeon break. He told Petra that if they could defeat the dungeon break, the loot would not be taxed. They also wonder whether that person will planning to take on the dungeon break. And they were surprised to see Nagi's badge. Gold Badge Adventurer, a gold rank adventurer. Nagi also invited them to join the party. And the reward divided is 9:1, looks like Nagi wants to make a deal with them. Nagi wants to know about the penalty received when impersonating an adventurer. The fines received start from 1,000 gold, hearing this Nagi cried. Dungeon break, or also known as dungeon rift. This dungeon connected to an unknown dimension through a rift. Is recommended for adventure of at least gold rank, in a typical dungeon no matter how difficult it is. All adventure just does is defeat monsters. But the opponent in a rift dungeon is space itself. Even skilled adventure can't predict the clear conditions of a rift dungeon before entering. Which made it a dungeon to be avoided due to the exponentially high risk of disappearance and death. The 4 of them were already in front of the dungeon rift gate. This dungeon will break in 1 hour, that means they have to finish it within 1 hour. In that 1 hour no one knows what happened, because this is a rift dungeon. Nagi hopes that this dungeon can be cleared easily. They couldn't waste a single minute, because they had to enter the dungeon immediately. They have also entered the dungeon rift. There is a striking difference in the real world. Nero and Van, who saw the difference in the dungeon, were very amazed. For him, this was the first time for them rookie adventurers to enter a dungeon. They will make an association to see their ability in completing this dungeon. Nagi and Petra, who saw their behavior, just remained silent. This was natural because it was their first time in the dungeon. It seems like their meeting with Nero and Van was indeed fate. Seen up there is a building standing on a large flying rock. They have to go there to finish the business. They thought should climb there in less than 1 hour. And now they don't know what to do after seeing the terrain of this dungeon. If Nagi asks them for help as a porter, they won't respond. But if Nagi ask for help as an adventurer, then we'll get a response. If they don't hurry up to finish this dungeon, then the villagers will be in danger. Nero looks like she wants to do something. There she was already preparing to take action. With her skills, she jumps from rock to reach goal. But suddenly Van felt something dangerous. He immediately pulled Nero quickly. She was surprised by the sudden situation. As a result, she fell down due to the action Van. For him, every action must be thought out in a planned manner. Nero's actions earlier were very inappropriate because she was in a hurry. They finally got into an argument because of different plans. It turns out that the chain doesn't belong to Van, but rather Petra's searcher talent detect. Petra deliberately gave this chain, so that they would not be separated from the dungeon, and could minimize failure. It looks like Nagi is also going to take something out of his bag. He thought about climbing the rock using the equipment he had prepared. And start climbing step by step to be safe. Don't waste stamina by trying to climb quickly, but climb at a slow pace. Nagi reminded them not to move too fast, and to always stay within range of the chain. He didn't allow Nero to move quickly. It's important to proceed while planning a movement route without having to go back, even if it's a little slow. But what he was worried about, not the route from the field but something else. The Rift Dungeon, which is always full of variables. The path to the upper building has been closed due to the variables he encountered. An unknown monster variable has blocked the way. The monster is called a stone pig. The monster is strong but not aggressive. She was quite surprised by these large rocks. It turned out there were also camouflaged monsters. According to her, the ecosystem of this dungeon is quite interesting. Instead, it looks like the stone road that had been laid out has disappeared because of the stone pig monster. And now climbing equipment is really a must. The way he has to provoke the monster to move. For the stone pig to become aggressive, but they also didn't have much time to defeat it. It looks like Van will do the job it is designed for. It's his time to shine, and he asks Nagi's permission as the team leader. He will release a skill with his right hand. It looks like 2 bullets were shot by the Van Necromancer talent, that came out of his hand. Skill that turns into finger summoning. It appears that there are 2 creatures that were successfully summoned. Rag golems named Geomdal and Chungdal. Now they can connect the rope to the rag golem without having to provoke the stone pig monster. But suddenly the golem looked strange. The golem made strange movements. Van is known as a failed summoner since he was in training camp. He had difficulty controlling the golem. They could only be confused by Van's very lacking summoning abilities. It looks like Nagi is going to do something because there is no more time. He will immediately throw the rope. The golem was ready to immediately catch the rope. Finally the rope was successfully attached to the golem. It looks like the rope is stuck in the wrong place. Once the rope is strong, he will immediately climb. They all ended up climbing using the rope that the golem had secured. Bringing a summoner into a dungeon is very useful in all kinds of terrain. But it looks like there is something in the golem. Nagi also realized the strangeness that happened to the golem. It seems that Van can no longer control the golem. Because the golem will explode soon. Nagi and Petra were immediately shocked when they heard this. The golem showed a reaction as if it was about to explode. Finally a big explosion occurred, right on the body of the pig stone monster. The ropes that restrained them also came loose. They all ended up falling because the rope had come loose. They must immediately find a cushion to minimize damage. Otherwise their efforts to complete the dungeon will fail. Finally Nagi decided to release a certain ability. Porter-style secret technique, Nagi will immediately use it to get out of trouble. He made the bag into a big cushion to minimize damage. Then the pad threw them into the air. So that the resulting air impact could make them land on a large flying rock. Looks like they're all doing fine. Because of their actions, they now only have half the time left. Will they be able to reach the top with the remaining time? For him there was no more time to reach the top. And now Nagi will be firm. They both are not allowed to use their abilities anymore. But he had prepared something, a special porter tool purpose climbing set. They started climbing using the equipment that Nagagi had provided. Van also uses it, but not Nero. They face various obstacles such as failing rock. Then the ice zone, with many other variables. Then the endurance zone which uses up stamina. There are also explosive rock monsters around there. They also looked exhausted from everything that had happened. They were almost at their destination, but Van and Nero were already exhausted. She wants to defeat the monster, not climb anymore. That's what Nagi planned. Nagi could see that inside the building there was a boss monster. The monster was waiting at the top. They were finally happy, because this was their first time fighting a monster in a dungeon. They will be eager to defeat the monsters to be recognized by the association. Nagi, who saw them, knew that those two are not adventurers who should be bronze rank. Perhaps they received the bronze rank because they are not the despised necromancer lineage and the beast people who haven't been free from slavery for very long. They all leave everything to Nagi, because they know Nagi is a gold adventure. But suddenly Petra saw something strange above. The boss monster visible at the top is a Serpenter dragon, but Serpenter dragon aren't originally purple. In other words, the dragon is dead. Nagi finally realized that the dragon had been defeated. Someone has defeated dragon. That person maybe also be an adventurer. An adventurer with a great sword managed to defeat the Serpenter alone. He also realized the arrival of someone who was not invited. Up there, Nagi saw someone very strong. It felt like there was a big difference in aura. He also felt a strong killing intent from that person. Finally he quickly went downstairs. Down to where the four of them were. Nagi could only remain silent as he made way here. At full speed the person managed to be beside Nagi. It looks like he's wearing an adventurer's necklace. Nagi was surprised by the man's speed. It turns out that the badge is of mithril rank. He was shocked when he saw the high-ranking badge. For him, this was a complicated matter, because no one should be allowed to enter the dungeon. For him, this dungeon needs to be is different from Nagi's goal. The current situation is much worse than facing the dragon. The man planned to defeat the four of them. This would be good for him, because it would be part of the subjugation.